Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, August 19th, 2023, and in yesterday's news, the New York Times and many other major outlets reported that Donald Trump has told his closest advisors that he plans to skip the upcoming Milwaukee GOP primary debate. Now, this is the first debate that is set to take place in the 2024 Republican primary season. It's taking place in a swing state, and it's being hosted by Fox News and two major Republican contributors to the Fox News network that are moderating the debate. These are people that the Republican Party often finds to be very fair and approachable to their side of the aisle, and it's a debate that is set up to be the first of many as we head into a very contested, or maybe not so much looking at it, primary season where candidates will be going after one another. With 13 candidates in the race, we have a number of them that had already qualified for the debate. There are qualifications that require 40,000 unique voters with 200 donors, with 200 from each individual state, consistent with 3+ national polls that show you at 1 percentage point or more in those national numbers. Qualifications have ranged all the way from Nikki Haley to Tim Scott to Perry Johnson to a number of candidates, and especially President Donald Trump, who Fox News has been privately hoping will be attending this first primary debate. Now, it's a one thing about ratings that Donald Trump does bring in a large audience. It would be very interesting to watch President Trump debate for the first time since October of 2020. But we know that President Trump was dabbling with the idea of skipping this debate. Now, he hasn't announced formally that he will no longer be attending this debate. This is everything that has come from his closest advisors, people who have leaked it to the press on background, whoever it might be. But altogether, this is a reputable story that is saying that Donald Trump, at least as of today, intends to skip the debate. Now, before we get too deep into this conversation, I do want to preface by saying that I think there's a possibility that Donald Trump still shows up. I think that he is pretty much set in stone with Tucker Carlson in this interview that would take place of the debate. But should he make a last-minute decision, we do know that the former president does make very quick decisions in terms of some of these more important political moves, and it's very possible that he changes his mind last minute. But I do think we are in a 90-95% chance territory that he does in fact skip the debate and does go forward with this interview with the former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who still has a major name for himself amongst the Twitterverse, or now Xverse, amongst the American public, especially conservative media outlets. Now, with this decision, I would say, number one, I believe this is the most politically advantageous decision for Donald Trump to do. I'm a big person that, I'm a big believer that people should be attending debates, should be allowing the voters to hear from them. But given where he is in terms of the overall polling chances, given where he is in terms of the betting odds, it doesn't exactly tell us that Donald Trump is in a position where he needs to win more voters. You see, the reason why I think a lot of these candidates will be putting themselves in the race and on this mainstream platform by Fox News is because of candidates like Mike Pence and Nikki Haley and Ramaswamy and Chris Christie that want to put themselves on a bigger, more national platform. Donald Trump, however, already has 55% of the Republican electorate, meaning that even if all the others had combined forces, they still couldn't stop him. 55% of the Republican electorate is already on his side, and he realizes and says this on Truth Social, where he says that Reagan didn't do it, and neither did others. People know my record, one of the best ever, so why would I debate? And he's right. Why would he debate if he already has this nomination locked up? That is the argument that his side of the aisle is making to the mainstream Republicans. Now, the RNC doesn't want to approach this primary as if he is the incumbent. They canceled a number of them back in 2020 because, rightfully so, he was the incumbent. They didn't think it would be fair, or they thought it would be a waste of resources when they were facing off against Joe Biden in the general election. A lot of reasons to believe that the decisions made back in 2020 were very valid. I think it was a decision that maybe didn't give voters the best chance at pushing back against the president, but based on the primary results in states that did hold them, it was practically 99-1. Now, seeing where Donald Trump is today, I think that it makes sense 100% to hold these debates. I don't think any state should be canceling their primaries or shifting to a convention system where they just allocate all their delegates to Donald Trump, because the voters very clearly, around half of them, want somebody else. But that other half, the majority half, that you see with Donald Trump validates this decision, as they did back in the 2016 primary. I want to shift your focus to the 2016 primary polls around the times of January 2016 and March 2016. Because at these points of time, Donald Trump led nationally. For instance, in January 2016, around the end of the month, was up 15 points nationwide, over 15 points, 16 percentage points across the nation. You can see that in March, again, Donald Trump led by roughly a similar amount, with every other candidate scrambling. Amongst the remaining anti-Trump vote combined together, yes, they could have taken on Donald Trump. But that is no longer the case this time around, and even back then, the reason why I'm pointing these areas out as my points of interest is because those are the times that Donald Trump decided to skip the GOP primary debates. Not only did he do it once, but he also did it again. And he did it to a point that when it came down to a three-way race, Ted Cruz also pulled out of the debate, John Kasich also pulled out of the debate, and then a debate just simply didn't happen. Donald Trump himself pulling himself out of the race, or pulling himself out of the debate, made the debate completely canceled. I mean, it just simply did not happen. And it's interesting because it was very unconventional, historically speaking, in 2016 for a candidate that wasn't the front or wasn't the nominee at the time, for somebody who wasn't the incumbent president of the United States. When Donald Trump references Reagan and others and saying, people know my record, this argument makes sense. From a political standpoint, it makes sense. But his argument in 2016 was just that he wanted to hold a fundraiser. He thought there were better uses of his time. And it was the first display that Donald Trump really got to show the country of just how powerful he is in shaping the media market, shaping the viewership, shaping the Republican primary. Because his withdrawal from this debate in 2016, the pundits went haywire. They were making arguments that this would tank Donald Trump's campaign, that people would finally see him as weak, that it would platform everybody else, and millions of people would be tuning in and seeing everybody but the notable absence. And yet somehow that had no effect on the GOP primary voters. So he tried it again. He tried it again when it was arguably more risky, when John Kasich could have dropped out of the race, endorsed Ted Cruz, and it could have been a two-way race. But he knew his power. He knew his impact on the race, and he knew just how large of a lead that he had. That yes, there could have been that consolidated effort against him in 2016, but around this point in time, I mean, you could have Kasich drop out, bumps up to Rubio, maybe. Rubio decided to drop out days later. You combine Cruz, you combine Kasich, you combine Rubio, and you're only outpacing the president, or at least at the time, businessman Donald Trump, by just slightly over double digits, which is a lead, but it would require all of the supporters to shift to you, because when Rubio dropped out, Donald Trump went from 32% the day Rubio dropped out, all of a sudden up to 43% just days after. So there clearly wouldn't be this perfect translation of support from the dropped out candidates to the anti-Trump candidate, because for many of them, Donald Trump was their second choice. But back to this point about 2016, this was a very interesting move. But now it really just isn't. Skipping this debate makes the most sense out of anything that he could have done in reference to this debate. Because given where he is nationally, there is no reason to believe that he needs to win any more voters. On top of that, too, I don't think this is some type of assessment that Donald Trump, or indicator that Donald Trump is worried about his debate performance. We've seen Donald Trump debate. And though in a general election debate, I would argue that President Biden and Secretary Clinton did beat Donald Trump in practically every single debate in the one-on-ones, because I think they were, one, a lot more level-headed, and two, the points that they made were arguably a lot more in-depth and more, understandable than some of the ones that Donald Trump made. And that's just the matter. The fact is that that is his debate strategy. That's how he wins these GOP primary debates, because when in this position where he's juxtaposed with all these other senators, representatives, governors who are so prim and proper, he comes across as the more genuine candidate. Even though he has been a businessman who was practically, made the wealth for himself, but very much had a wealthy family that inherited his money, there's a reason why he came across as the genuine one to the white working class, to working class Republican primary voters, whereas candidates that did have a story to tell simply did not. He resonated as a billionaire more with the white working class in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania than Secretary Clinton, who arguably had a much more, not rags to riches story. I don't like to work within that storyline, though, but I do think she definitely had a story about a working class, middle class family, as Joe Biden did, that was able to make it big, somewhere to a point where she could be running for president of the United States. I'm not here to rehash the 2016 election. I'm doing it more so to point out that his debate strategy very clearly works. I don't think this is at all a display that he's worried, because given where he was back in 2015 when the first debate actually happened, he was a winner. And nearly every single debate after, you saw the winners and losers of the 6th presidential debate, the 5th Republican presidential debate, the 4th, winners, Donald Trump, right? This was very consistent because he knew how to debate amongst this electorate. He knew how to win amongst this electorate, which is exactly what he's doing this time around. Now, I don't think we should count out Donald Trump entirely for the debates. I think there's a possibility that he decides to enter back into the fray. But I think a huge thing, too, that he didn't want to do this time around to get on the debate stage was sign the loyalty pledge. Now, this article is from March of 2016. Around the time, there were 3 candidates in the race, as I've already mentioned, Ted Cruz and John Kasich, and he signed a debate pledge back in September of 2016, stating that he would, in fact, agree to endorse the candidate should it not be himself. But then came March, when it came down to an even more contentious primary season and a seemingly consolidated effort from the establishment and Cruz and Kasich, both a senator and a governor, against a businessman to thwart him from being the nominee. He pulled back on this pledge, saying that he wouldn't support the Republican nominee. I think this time around, what he's trying to avoid is signing any pledge whatsoever, because I do believe that should Donald Trump somehow lose the nomination, he runs third party. That's a very, very extreme circumstance. It would pretty much ensure a Joe Biden re-election. And based off the primary numbers, it isn't really a concern the GOP should have. But I do not think that he wants to get on that debate stage by signing the RNC's pledge that he would endorse the eventual nominee. The only way he agrees to that, as he said in 2016, is if he's the Republican nominee, which is a very funny way of looking at it, but it's a very practical one at this point in time, because they know that they need him on that debate stage more than he needs them. And it also is just a big pushback against Fox News, not only to skip this GOP debate after having the Fox News, CEO and major producers and, major contributors coming to Mar-a-Lago, coming to Donald Trump and saying, hey, will you please attend this debate? Trying to talk to him, trying to reason with him to get him on that debate stage. And nearly every single time, he just leaves them up in the air. He doesn't give them a concrete answer, but it is clear now what that concrete answer is. So it's one thing to skip the debate. It's a second thing now. A complete pushback against Fox News, because they fired Tucker Carlson just months ago. I mean, they got rid of him after the Dominion voting lawsuit. Cost them $500 million here over that. And Tucker Carlson had to go. Right, they realized that what he was bringing in with his TV show was not enough to counteract the conspiracy theories that he promoted, the election integrity lies that he promoted back during the 2020 election and continues to promote today. But Donald Trump very obviously is someone who, at least we think, believes the election was rigged. We know he campaigns on that, but in terms of actual thought, we don't know if that's true. He's here with Tucker Carlson saying he's going to do an interview with him. He's going to take the ratings away from Fox News and shift them over to their exiled ex-host. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but it just goes to show just how far Donald Trump is willing to go to push back against the network that he used to love. When they made that Arizona call, that was the beginning of the end. When it came down to their relationship, he already had a bit of an iffy relationship during the 2016 primary. Then they pretty much cozied up during his presidency. But since then, they haven't had the best relationship. And I think this is going to really, really show the impact that Donald Trump does have on viewership, does have on the Republican electorate, because there's a good chance that nobody watches this debate next Wednesday. I mean, we are about just 4 days away, and the GOP is going to be scrambling for viewership. Because if you look at all the candidates that will be on that debate stage, DeSantis has made it. Okay, a candidate at 14%. Ramaswamy has made it. A candidate at 7%. Pence has made it. 5%. Haley has made it 3%. Christie has made it 3%, right? And I'm telling you this to say, these are practically nobodies to the Republican Party. Yes, they know who they are, but in terms of chances at winning the nomination, zilch, right? You aren't winning when Donald Trump has a 41-point advantage, larger than any advantage he ever had in the 2016 nomination, where he decimated his opponents. Based on where he is in polling data, Race to the White House's forecast gives Donald Trump 95% of the delegates. I kid you not, 95%. to Ron DeSantis' 5% with very few delegates dispersed and split amongst the remaining group. So when you see forecasts like this that are rooted in election history, rooted in statewide polls, rooted in fundraising numbers, rooted in national polls, and you see that Donald Trump is expected to win 95% of the delegates, if you were him, would you go? Knowing that it would be a 12v1, knowing that everybody would be going after you on that debate stage because everybody has something to gain by tearing down the former president. Everybody has something to gain when he's leading by such a substantial amount. So maybe it wasn't necessarily the best move in good faith for the primary voters, but it was certainly the most electable one. It was certainly the strongest one politically speaking. And based off where this is, the dynamic goes a lot further than just trying to avoid dropping polling numbers. By moving in with Tucker Carlson through this debate, it's a huge FU to the Fox News network, and it's one that will probably define the relationship between President Trump and major media outlets over the next coming months as we head straight into the primary season, because there's a chance that this is the beginning of a trend where Donald Trump simply doesn't go to a single debate and yet somehow still steamrolls the competition, which is probably one of the likeliest outcomes at this point in time. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 Republican primary analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.